Hello, welcome to Truth and Transparency. What is up? A lot of fireworks going on in the courtroom. Lots. Um, they're supposed to be resuming back in the courtroom here in just a few. Gonna recap what happened a little bit earlier. Let's see. First, want to say hello to all of you guys. Start there. Welcome, subs, members, moderators. You know what's up. What's up? You guys get like a double feature. I was live earlier. If you did not see the live stream earlier, bringing out some receipts, some documents, talking about everything to know about that 1122 King Road house. Why they want that mother burned down. They want it down. What is that? Boston, New Orleans, JJ. Nice hoodie, girl. I got some Cleveland. I'm rocking some Cleveland stuff. Let's go ahead and share some things though. Let's get this pumping. Shannon Gray making it known in the courtroom today. Brian Koberger had on a suit and tie. What else can we talk about? Let's see. Again, I'm still traveling, so like you guys get me like on all hot ham. You guys get me when I'm traveling. So let's see what we got here though for you. Court TV in the courtroom going like ham on Twitter, like just like boom, 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 shotgunning, like, you know, everything that's being said back and forth. So we're going to talk about that. You got a shout out from JLR chat. You damn right I did. No, I respect his work. He respects my work. Totally. He's on it. The best part about it is when you can have like your difference of opinion, but still like respect each other's, you know, work ethic, approach to a case, you know, things like that. Apparently, we are live now. We are live. All right, I'm going to bring up some of this stuff. I'll bring up Twitter. You guys, the big question mark is like, are they going to allow the cameras in the courtroom? Are they going to drop the gag order? Are they going to keep the gag order? I know everybody has their opinions on this. I just think that I think both sides can make their arguments. But ultimately, I do believe that there should be cameras in the courtroom. That gives you transparency. I think that if you are taking the stand that day and you don't want witnesses to be harassed or things like that, we've done in the past where the camera's just not on them, just like the camera's not on the jury. So, but the audio's there for those that don't want to be on camera. But for transparency purposes, I think that there's nothing wrong with the courtroom having audio and cameras, and then as far as the gag order, you know, I guess I struggle with, if the prosecution wants the gag order and the defense wants the gag order, then what are we debating here? So let's see what we got here. All right, so this is a court TV. Well, we're arguing the Constitution, but so you have the media that wants something, you have the Gonsalves family through Gray that wants something. But I guess I'm confused though, because the Gonsalves family has been speaking. So I don't, but here we go. So inside the courtroom, Brian Kober's hearing is beginning. The accused mass murderer just walked in, dressed in suit and tie, flanked with his 3 attorneys. I just think that's funny verbiage. Hashtag Brian Kober quickly glanced up at the gallery for a split second as he walked in. No shackles on his ankles today, as we observed in previous court appearances. Also, he is in suit and tie. I also noticed that I thought there was some gel in his hair. So why haven't they talked about the gel? Judge John Judge apologizes for mispronouncing victims' names at the arraignment. So he clearly is listening to the media as he wanted to make that apology. I think the G family is fighting for access to more information. Yes, they are. They are. So, yeah, it's the media that's contesting, obviously, the gag order, but the prosecution's fine with it. The defense is fine with it, right? Whereas you look at the Delphi case, the defense did not want there to be a gag order. The defense said, hey, you guys just had 5 or 6 years to ask the public for help and doing all of these things. Now you put a gag order, and now we meaning Richard Allen, can't ask for the public for help. So it's not just like, for me, it's interesting when you want to look at the different cases. But here you have the defense and the prosecution aligning together, the media, and then the Gonsalves family. The Gonsalves family has said that we haven't gotten any information and that we're not going to get any for probably like 3 years. Allegedly, the Gonsalves family could be a potential witnesses. So they're talking about that. I would agree right there that I think that the gag order will go back to the Supreme Court. Yeah. I don't think that the gag order will be lifted. I don't. So let's see what else. Now the attorney for the Gonsalves family, Shannon Gray, is arguing his motion to amend or clarify the gag order the magistrate judge put in place, in January. Okay. So Let's see. Now here I went ahead and wrote in because this is all I care about. The judge said that he is not deciding today. He will review the briefings and get to his decision, in written fashion. And I said, great job being so detailed with the words within the courtroom. How much for a copy of your legal pad notes? Asking for myself, not a friend. Thanks, Truth and Transparency YouTube. So I just want her notes. So how much for a copy of the legal pad notes? That's all I cared about. Just wanted you guys to see what I had to say about that. I want the notes. Right there. What do you guys think? You like that? I just think that they've been talking. So I guess that's my question comes in. I think that they're going to let the cameras in for the court proceedings. So yeah, I think that we'll get that. I do. Let's see what we got here. So again, that's just my 2 cents that I wanted to put in on that Twitter. So let's see what's going on. Let me get back to my Twitter over here. I'm gonna try to do side screen. William, thank you. Lana, you're gonna need more binders. I stocked up. Remember? I stocked up. Let's see what we got. Oh, so Court TV's there. They've been there. They've been interviewing the family. So according to Kaylee's dad, he believes that Brian Koberger was motivated by jealousy. So the motivation was jealousy. Not sure if you guys saw that interview. Lana, is there a way to see if 1122 was Kaylee's work address? Well, we're trying to do all that we can. Lana, do you really think they will play these body cams in a courtroom? What body cams? The body cams of going in that day? Okay, be more specific with that question, because I think it's a good question. Can't wait to hear Nancy Grace in a suit, mind you. Woo, Nancy. That's funny. In a suit, mind you. No shackles. Printer paper, binder. Oh, thank you. That was really awesome. Thank you. Chandler is great. Yes, Nancy. No. Thank you so much. I'm telling you, man, printer ink is expensive. Paper, binders. If you guys have and you want to donate, I'm going to start accepting donations for binders. Like if you have old school binders you want to, get rid of. What's the jealousy? Excellent student, own office, seen with women, confirmed running buddies, so reaching. I do think that there's a lack of connect Brian Koberger to, the victims. And I think that's, that's everybody's been asking that. The band field, I think they can use whatever they want as far as the body cams go. I mean, they're going to use whatever. I think it's all part of evidence. I mean, it's all part of discovery. jealousy of her lifestyle, in my opinion. Interesting. So let's see. So something that's interesting to me is that allegedly the Gonsalves family has not been interviewed by prosecutors. Okay. So this whole thing about them potentially being witnesses, and that's part of like, the gag. I think it was interesting to hear that the prosecutors or police, somebody told the Gonsalveses that they weren't going to have answers for like 3 years. You know, who decided relevance as far as what is allowed for evidence? We haven't even gotten to an evidentiary hearing. We haven't gotten to, anything about to suppress anything. So discovery is discovery. The house had been full of students for years, had it not. Yes. Oh my God. You guys want to see a little baby deer? Oh, there's a baby deer outside. Oh, they're so cute. Sorry. Literally just right at my window. What is going on in the courtroom now? I'm not sure if they've entered back yet. At 4:30, they were supposed to enter back. So we'll see. Let's see where we're at. All right, here we can do this. I'll show you guys this. There you go. Again, just trying to bring everything that I can for you guys. We'll venture through Twitter here a little bit. Latah court clerk. So there's Brian. He's in his suit. There he is. Brian looks like a Fed to me, says Bon Bon. Well, you guys aren't going to be ready for this next episode I do. Do you know who lives across the street from Brian Kohlberger's parents' house? Susan Payne. None other than an FBI agent. Susan Payne. Again, Susan Payne living across the street from Brian Kohlberger, FBI agent. We're going to talk more about that in the next coming days. Want to welcome the newest wrenches in town. But there's Brian Kohlberger right there. He's got a black suit, a glistening, steamy, misty tie. He went with the fat or not, all the way buttoned up, white collared shirt, a little bit of mousse, a new fade on the side and the back. And there is Ann Taylor, recently dyed blonde. No roots visible. Not sure who. Looks like Sleuthy Goosey next to her. Not sure who the brunette is. But we are giving you play-by-play here. There is Brian Kohlberger. Looks nervous. I think anybody in that situation would look nervous. He's clenching his, jaw muscles, as they would say. I just think anybody that looks at that is just wild. But this, the new attorney, yes. But there's Brian. So he is in a suit and tie. Now, anybody that's saying that he glanced up at the gallery, I just see him walking to opens up his own, chair, takes a seat. Oh, there you go. Miss Nine, welcome to the family. So happy to have you. Absolutely. Moving on. Let's see what else we got here. Brian Kohlberger just walked back inside the courtroom for a second hearing of the day. This one is expected to focus on the media coalition's effort to vacate the extensive gag order over the case. All right. So let's go ahead and get on over to that. We will, that was just updated 2 minutes ago. So Brian just walked back into the courtroom for the second hearing 2 minutes ago, straight from Court TV. Again, welcome. I'd be crying if I were innocent, says Dangerous. Yeah, I mean, everybody acts differently, I guess. Pain, wow, small world. Yeah, everybody's related in this case. Yes, in the United States of America, innocent until proven guilty. I think it's right to see him not in shackles and dressed like a civilian, Nothing but love. Yo, everybody, the truth will come out. Atlanta, you get on, girl. And Nicole says, from everything that I've seen, she says, hey, from what I've seen, his body language has been nothing but appropriate throughout what I've seen. What do you want? I agree. Like, I don't, but the defense did speak on why they stood in silence. And it was because of everything surrounding it with this now, they went to this grand jury and they did this secret indictment with, blah, blah, blah. So, standing silent was indicative of just like, we don't agree with anything that's going on. Is he wearing a vest? It looked like, yes, it looks like he has right there, like square. You see that square? You could see it. So definitely, I do think he is wearing a vest, just like he was the other times. So he's surrounded by women attorneys. He does have one male attorney. I think that when you have the right person, you just do the right things. So that way you can just, hey, give this man his fair trial. When you have the right guy, it shouldn't matter. You know what I mean? He's been caged for 6 months, says Mandy Joe. Does she have a blue wrench? My anxiety would be out of control walking into a room of people and in a normal atmosphere. Yeah, I think that, yeah. Are any victims' family members there? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Pains are super common in the Washington, Idaho area. Well, this Payne lives in Pennsylvania, across the street from Brian Kohlberger, Susan Payne, and she's with the FBI. Just curious if she helped get that DNA. When you found out, lo and behold, maybe it was, Brian and this neighbor, he took up, oh, I have an FBI agent across the street from me. I have so many questions to ask her growing up. I mean, I don't know. We're going to get into it. He's gotten bigger, yeah, looking at the first photo till now. He is not on them drugs no more, and I bet he never will do it again. I don't know. But okay, let's take a look at something else. I think you guys have gotten enough of him walking into the courtroom, sitting there. I thought it was Sleuthy Goosey to the left, but I have been told that it's not. Just kidding, Sleuthy. Give it a shout out to Sleuthy Goosey. She's doing a great job. She's always blowing up Twitter, combating. And I think she has every right to combat it, but that's just me. Go Sleuthy. That house was bought sometime 7 months ago. Yeah, but who lived in it before it was bought? Uh, 100 agree with that. Yep. Hey, Lana, I see you peeking. Sure. Not related to Detective Payne, is she? No idea. I'm just more or less focused on the fact that the person living across the street is an FBI agent. So, all right, let's see what else we got. See some updates here. Court TV. Oh, Brian Kohlberger in court. Let's see what else we got. Okay. Jennifer Coffindaffer. Hashtag Brian Kohlberger's media expert will testify on BK's behalf. Expert witnesses typically cost between $250 to $750 an hour. Well, Scott Roeder, I think, charges $1,000, but I could be wrong. A 58-page report can cost up to and exceed $50,000. The expert must research, write, support, and pore through social media and mainstream media reports to back their position. It's a lot of money to fight merely a gag order, says Coffindaffer. Recall, too, the defense hired a crime scene expert on day one. Well, why wouldn't you? They're trying to wreck the house. You need to get as many photos as you can, right? I believe this judge would have supported the gag order based on the same arguments that convinced the magistrate. Well, interesting. The prosecution isn't calling an expert. There is a reason. Hashtag Idaho4. Again, so Coffindaffer seems like she is wanting to bring up that, whoa, y'all are spending money. Well, why don't we talk about all the months that they thought that there was going to be a preliminary hearing and all the months that went into preparing for a preliminary hearing and all the time and all the money spent in that, only to then go seek a grand jury? Why aren't we talking about all the money that was being spent there? You can't have it both ways. When you make an argument, be prepared for, something to be, come back around. And she wants to say, hey, that's expensive. Well, January, February, March, April, May, 5 months, how long? And then you decide, so they're preparing for this preliminary hearing, spending money. So that's just crazy to me, that argument. That wouldn't stand. Latah County is not broke. She's just mad that he has a badass defense team. Like I said, The gag order is the least of issues. Just follow the court documents. I agree, Miss Nine. It's all about the documents. The documents. Yeah. Great point there. Men hold it in. So he's a man. A lot of men don't want to show his emotions and cry, especially in front of two female attorneys. Well, we have no idea how he's behaving behind closed doors, with them. I'm sure he's emotional. OJ jury got to tour the crime scene. Absolutely, they did. It's his right entitlement. The courts didn't grant him a favor with the suit. Absolutely, it's his right. And since everybody wants to this is exactly how you address your client. He's human, so you want, you're innocent until proven guilty. Him coming in shackles and a jumpsuit, that's prejudicial in itself. Atlanta, can you take a poll of how many people think BK did it or not? No. I don't. Anybody right now that's going to say that Brian Kohlberger is 100% guilty, then you're not following the United States Constitution. You're innocent until proven guilty. The question should be is what out there is the reasons that you think what you think. And then it kind of goes back to, okay, mainstream media has given you that thought pattern because no, that's not there. Me and Scott can go back all day. He says that there's all this overwhelming evidence. I said, where? They may have it, but we don't know about it. So let's see what we got. Anything updating? Okay, 9 minutes ago. This proceeding revolves around the gag order and the restrictions it places on the news outlets who want to cover the case. A coalition of media outlets believe the gag order restricts First Amendment rights. Well, it does, naturally. But what are you doing? Let's see. What's up with the state not providing the defense with proper evidence they're requesting? That's suspicious. Well, I think that's like a game. They're all going to go back and forth and say we've given you this. Well, no, you haven't. And guess what? They may have given them, but if you're talking about you gave it to me in I don't even know how many external hard drives you would be handing over. Here and go fetch for it. So it's like, hey, how about this? You guys should know where it's at, right? Because you guys have some organization, some files and stuff. Can you give me X, Y, and Z? So JLR has the live from Court TV. Well, that'd be the live from earlier. It's not live right now. Maybe we could take a look. We'll take a look. Mm-hmm. Court TV is definitely not live. What happens when you're live? I'll show you. Is you have a red ring around your little person. So these are the lives. Then you go to home, then you go to videos. Okay. And the videos here you have, that's Keely. They did that. Lana, do you think the defense asked for no cameras because they are expecting a no for everything? I think they want cameras, just my opinion. No, I think that the only reason that I believe that the defense would want no cameras for the court proceeding is to preserve an appeal. And that would, you're going to leave, like, that would be my take on that, is for a appellate issue. Like, the more people, the less people that know something. So the judge is not ruling today. That is correct. He's going to issue an order in a brief like that, like, basically. Just like how everything that they're arguing today, they would have wrote like in their motion. It was from Court TV. It must be released now. Well, sorry, honey. Have a good day. I guess if JLR has it, I would be over there watching it. That's just my take. So. Let's see what else we got here. Again, guys, I just care about the notebooks, you know. Give me the notebooks. See, when I was in the courtroom for Sheldon Jeter Jr. case, we couldn't even have our devices, you know. We had to take all of our own notes. So to be able to have your device in there tweeting, oh, what was your question? Sorry. Yeah, it was released a couple hours ago. That would have been the first one. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mod Squad. We don't talk like that. No cameras because they have undercovers there. Important people don't want their faces shown. You guys, it's very simple, though, about that. I saw it in the McStay case. I do believe that there should be cameras in the courtroom. And if it's a witness that, you know, doesn't want their face shown, then they show the United States of America flag. They show, you know, you keep your camera somewhere else. But I think that without a doubt, the camera should be able to be in the courtroom. I think that that's transparency. You know, the gag order, I feel it's, you know, I feel both ways in the gag order. You know, I would love for the defense then to be able to combat the BS when it comes out. You know what I mean? But no one has time for that. You know what I'm saying? You'd have to hire somebody to just be like hey, by the way, Ashley Banfield put this out. You know, they're saying this. It's like, what? So think about that.
Haley, Madison, Ethan, and Xana shocked the University of Idaho community. It stunned the nation, but its biggest impact was on the families of the victims. Lives which have been shattered, hearts that have been broken. It is way beyond tragic. Tonight, in a Court TV exclusive, Chanley Painter rides along with Kaylee's father as he pays tribute to his daughter on her birthday.
You go from, okay, they just told us that our babies, 2 of our babies are gone. At that moment, you feel so lost that you're like, okay, I have a million questions, but there's nobody to call. There's no pamphlet to read.
Then Chanley speaks in depth about the immense impact all of this has had on the family and how they are dealing with it.
Love you, boss.
You know, you replace the negative with the positive, and I've got lots of positives. I've gotten 2 grandbabies since this whole thing went down, and we're focusing on those girls, and you know, we've got work to do in the future, but just want.
Wait, Steve has 2 grandbabies since this all happened? I didn't know that. It's interesting.
One day at a time.
Tonight, we are live from Moscow, Idaho, as the families prepare for tomorrow's court hearing in the Idaho students' murder case.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. This hour is going to be important. It's going to be important. We cover murder trials a lot here at Court TV, a lot. And sometimes what gets lost in everything.
Jade Day for her birthday, and he allowed us to go along with him, like you said, as he talked about who she was, what she would have been doing on her birthday, probably on a nearby lake with Maddie, celebrating her birthday. She just bought herself a new vehicle. But he told me about, of course, his favorite memories.
I'm talking about, he said that he had 2 grandbabies since this has happened. So that's what we're referring to there, Mod Squad, 2 grandbabies. The younger daughter had a baby when she was 17. Yeah, see, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, that's the first I was hearing about it. So just that I would stop that and let you guys know. Yes, Gray just said numerous times, actually, that they have never interviewed the Gonsalves family. So, like, the police may have, but the prosecution has not. I don't know if he's distinguishing between the two, but so.
Of her birthday and what he misses about her the most. Let's watch.
Kaylee, I remember her tearing up a cake and just making a big mess, getting it in her hair. So she was just so excited about when everyone was focused around her, and she was the center of attention, and everybody was giving her gifts, and she always had her friends over.
All right, 6 minutes ago. Judge now inclined to grant defense motion to take judicial notice of press coverage. The defense says it has 2 witnesses for the hearing, including a professor of psychology, to talk about why we care. The state has no position on these matters. Whoa. "12 minutes ago, Media Coalition attorney refers to the non-dissemination order as a gag order and that it, quote unquote, has rendered harm to our client's interest. Judge, I find that to be inaccurate and distasteful name for the order, aka gag order. It's not called that. I would appreciate not using that term." So again, this is reporting from Court TV that the Media Coalition attorney refers to the non-dissemination order as a gag order and that it has, quote unquote, it has rendered harm to our client's interest. Judge says I find that to be inaccurate and distasteful name for the order, aka the gag order. So the judge wants people to be calling it its proper name and not a gag order. 2 minutes ago, media attorney concedes she understands the defense concern with having gag order, but quote unquote, this court has tools to non-dissemination orders to ensure best chance to get jury. There is probing voir dire, jury questionnaires, change of venue, passage of time. During the hearing, hashtag Brian Kohlberger sits with his elbows are the armrests of his chair, intently watching the speakers. I haven't seen him chat or jot notes or anything with his attorneys while in the courtroom. He is stoic. Let's go like this. First order of business. The judge grants the media coalition motion to intervene for the limited purposes of challenging the gag order. Let's see if we can go like this. There you go. Let's take a look. See, I just think that all of this should be shown. That's how I feel. Full link. Sleuthy. Yeah, that's probably from earlier, the live.
What do you miss most about her?
I missed her smile, and that she was so giving. She really wanted to be like, every morning wake up and be like, I'm gonna go get breakfast, what do you guys want? I'm gonna get coffee, what do you guys want? We're a big family, so it was nice to have somebody that was always thinking about going and doing something and then helping other people along the way. So I'll always miss that, and I'll miss that smile and the hug.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he said the goal of today, and really of all of the families now and really to the future, is to make sure, do everything they can to ensure that it's the victims' names that people remember. When years from now, decades from now, they don't think of the man's name who is alleged to have murdered them.
I think that's a great question there, Lana, in your mind. Do you think that there is a wrong time of death for this case? If so, then the gap in the time would have an explanation. I'm interested to hear when the Emmy speaks on it, if she's giving a, from this time to this time, I don't believe that she's going to be saying that this person died at, 4:06, and this person died at 4:11, and then this person died at. That's not what I see a a range. So, I think it's going to be just interesting, and from the standpoint of how she comes to that, and when they explain that, and then obviously I think the defense is going to have somebody that that could possibly combat that, but to do it with education and it's just going to be interesting. Let's take a look at this.
But they remember Kaylee, Xana, Ethan, and Maddie's name as the positive force and impact they had on this community and their loss had on this community, Vinny.
Yeah, I've chosen not to say the name. I do that in a lot of these stories, mass murders. And, sometimes you cover a trial, the name's going to be there. There's going to be a trial. You're going to hear it a ton of times. But I think in this case, you're going to hear those 4 names, and you're going to remember those 4 names because that's what everyone's talking about, and that's good. So let's talk about the place where you were many, many times reporting on this case, which was the crime scene, the house where they lived, which turned. I think of the house, I think of it 2 ways. I think of it one way, like here's where they all lived together and they had some good times, and they're starting to learn to be adults. They're having parties, friends are over, and this is it, the big last hurrah for some of them as seniors. But then it's turned into this horrific crime scene. So what do the families want done with this property at this point?
Well, they would like it to be preserved, Vinny, and we've reported that the university now owns that property. They have plans to demolish the.
Yeah, President Scott Coomer, he wanted his childhood home back. Go check out the earlier video. Scott Coomer lived in that home. He grew up in that home, 1122 King Road home. Now the question is were they good memories? Were they not good memories? His family got divorced. It was a broken home then. But yes, the family wants to keep the home. The family wants to keep the home. The families, and then the university is talking about that they're tearing it down.
The home this summer. I checked back in with the spokesperson of the University of Idaho today. She confirmed that to me. I asked for a specific date. She says they don't have a specific date just yet for when it is to be demolished, but she said they are working through the process. And this is what Steve told me about why they don't want anything to happen to the home.
We communicated with some other families. There's 3 families that are concerned with that. We're trying to make sure that that all the proper steps are done. There's audio that, from my understanding, and if there's audio, I don't understand how you could take a house down and not say that people are going to want to hear those sounds from the location of the recording from inside the house, dog barking, things like that. Mm-hmm. So we'll try to do everything. And something like that is just evidence. It's not for or against. It's just evidence. So that's why we're trying to protect it.
It's evidence to be preserved. That's his position, and it may behoove the state to keep it standing, because if you're there in person, Vinny, it does make a difference to see how close this home is to.
Boom, right there. Steve says it. It's from his understanding, there's audio. There's more than that, though. There's not just the dog barking, guys. It's what is heard when you're walking up the stairs. What does it sound like when you're coming down the stairs? What does it sound like when you're in the bedroom, one of the bedrooms upstairs? What does it sound like? Because they have an eyewitness that's placing a certain time on when these sounds were so it's things like that. And here you have the parents that are speaking out. Okay. So why would the university go against that? Why? That stuff, like he said, like you wreck that home, it's not going to be the same. I'm hoping that the wood that they have outside of the windows, like everything should just be preserved. And then how dark it would be. The lighting in there, the lighting of that good vibe sign. She saw a man walking towards her clad in black. Where did she say that she was when she saw that?
The neighbor's camera that picked up the audio that Steve was referring to. But he also told me that at the last hearing, he spoke to the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, and the prosecutor said that this is going to be a long road for the families. They may not have all the answers for 3 years, Vinny, so this house would have to be standing for a long time in the middle of this community.
It's fascinating that he wants the house preserved as evidence for the trial, because there could be a jury view. We see it in many, many cases. In the Murdaugh case, they went back to the scene. It helped the jury to figure it out. It became great evidence for the prosecution in that case, even though prosecutors didn't want to necessarily go there. I am with them on that, by the way. I think in some states, there's like a view in almost every case, like Massachusetts, very common. So I'm with them there. They should preserve it because it is the scene. I understand the university from their perspective, but there's a criminal trial for a mass murderer, and doing everything you can to.
When is it going to come into play about the defense having a say in that? So that'll be interesting. Judge proposes that he can fix the order if it is indeed overly broad. Order by clarifying who this order touches, what people can say, can't say. Just in 4 minutes ago. 48 seconds ago, judge is going to grant the defense request to take judicial notice of the media coverage of the case and take testimony today on the issue of the gag order, saying the media attorney would have the opportunity to come back if need to for reconsideration. So there you go. The judge is going to grant the defense request to take judicial notice of the media coverage of the case and take testimony today on the issue of the gag order. And the judge is proposing that he can fix the order if it is indeed overly broad by clarifying who this order touches, what people can say and can't say. Please don't do that. When people act like trash cans, we're better than them. So please don't do that. I've asked Gerald's mods to remove that account If they want to continue to let that go on their channel, that's up to them. But please, we're not going to be talking about that. That's been going on for a while. I'm very well aware. I'm flattered that I'm that newsworthy. That's how I feel. I don't believe that this is that they're not going to have answers for 3 years. I don't believe that. Hey, what's up, Hossein? I see you with the new rim, lean the rim with the brim. You got some Tims on. Yeah, they're just very, very jealous. They're trash cans, trash bags, whatever you want to call them. I call them debris. Again, newsworthy. Miss Oriani, yet again.
To ensure a conviction should be the first priority, absolute first priority, because we know how things can go south inside a courtroom sometimes. I've seen it. Okay. Does he have any theory about the motive?
Yeah, he does, Vinny. I asked him, what's the connection? Because it's been rumored, Kaylee and or Maddie were the targets of this mass murder. He told me something I hadn't heard him or his family say before about why they think the alleged killer actually went to that home and murdered them. And remember, Maddie and Kaylee were on the 3rd floor. They were in the same room in the bed together, likely the place this murderer started. So here's what he had to say about it.
They're just two girls that were always happy, always filming. So I think maybe he just seen that happiness, and there's something in him that was jealous of the fact that two people could love each other and be like the best friends. And I think that really rubbed him wrong and got him thinking about, well, why do they have this great life and I don't? And I think that's whoever he picked, that'll be the backstory. Is just a jealousy of their lifestyle.
So he believes that allegedly this man was jealous of this lifestyle they were living. We know based on the affidavit, Vinny, that the alleged murderer visited this area of the crime scene 12 prior times.
I struggle to say that he visited this. You're talking about pings. That's ping off of a tower. So I struggle with that. I think you need to scrap that. It may be the case, but what you don't, that's not what you have. What you have is his phone pinging off the same tower that the 1122 King Road home pings off of when you use a device from that location. Now, this is interesting that he says that two people could love each other like this. That Brian didn't have that. This is something that, Scott Roeder had mentioned.
They're just two girls that were always happy, always filming. So I think maybe he just seen that happiness, and there's something in him that was jealous of the fact that.
See, this is what I don't like about mainstream media, and why I liked what Chronicles of Olivia did. Look at how they're talking in the studio right now. Okay. This is a classic example of just pure not okay. Watch this.
Yeah, he does, Vinny. I asked him, what's the connection? Because it's been rumored, Kaylee and or Maddie were the targets of this mass murder. He told me something I hadn't heard him or his family say before about why they think the alleged killer actually went to that home and murdered them. And remember, Maddie and Kaylee were on the 3rd floor. They were in the same room in the bed together, likely the place this murderer started. So here's what he had to say about it.
They're just two girls.
Right there. That question wasn't asked in front of him. Like, they talked about that in the studio, and then this is the clip that we get. And this is the problem. This, you can say, oh, they're just editing. No. If that's the question that she just asked him, then play that segment. I want to hear the question being asked how she asked it, and then his response. This right here, I think that this is the problem. This is the problem when you want to interview somebody. Interview them, you get to hear the question, and I get to hear how they answered it. This right here, that's not what this is. This is trash. This is not okay. We don't know what was asked, okay? We don't. And then here's him just saying whatever he was saying, but what came before this? What was asked of Mr. Gonzalez before this?
Girls that were always happy, always filming. So I think maybe he just seen that happiness, and there's something in him that was jealous of the fact that two people could love each other and be like the best friends. And I think that really rubbed him wrong.
Two girls being like best friends rubbed Brian the wrong way. What? Okay. That's this is just wild.
And got him thinking about, well, why do they have this great life and I don't? And I think that's whoever he picked, that'll be the backstory. Is just a jealousy of their lifestyle.
So it would either be like jealousy of Ethan and Xana's lifestyle, or it'd be jealousy of Maddie and Kaylee. Just.
So he believes that allegedly this man was jealous of this lifestyle they were living. We know based on the affidavit of any of that, the alleged murderer visited this area of the crime scene 12 prior times before the murders actually took place. We know there's a lot of search warrants that are sealed in the court files of a digital trail of all types of social media, online outlets that could be revealing. We don't know everything because of the gag order, of course.
Again, the only thing I have a problem with this is that I want to hear the question asked, and I want Mr. Gonzalez to be able to answer the question that you had asked him in the way that you had asked him. But we don't get to see that. We just see this piece of it and everything else around it. This is what happens though. Like, you go and you do a mainstream media interview, and they're all there, and you're telling a story, and you're talking back and forth, and then they get to pick it and clip it and package it all up, and then this is what we see. And this is the problem, in my opinion. I don't think that transparency is a problem. That's, I kind of think, what's great about the press conferences. When somebody asks you a question, everybody hears the question, and then we get to hear your answer. But it's just, this is the stuff that I think is the problem. And then you have a family that's just like, I'm not just saying the Gonzalez family. I'm saying in any case out there, you're like, wait a second, I did an interview, and this is supposed to be about all this other stuff, and they just only want to point to this, that, or the other, and kind of make up their own, well. So I have a problem with it, and this is what people should have a problem with, in my opinion. But Q&As for a press conference, that's legit, that's raw, that's real. Yeah.
But also Steve tells me he's not sure if this is the first time that this murderer allegedly did kill, but hopefully he wants those answers as soon as possible.
Yeah, Kaylee and Maddie were living their best lives. They were, and
Kaylee wasn't even living there anymore, right? Kaylee wasn't even living there anymore. When did Kaylee move out? When was Kaylee only visiting? When was the last time that she was there? I mean, I just can't imagine that the Gonsalveses are not going to be witnesses and going to be testifying. If I'm Ann Taylor, don't you think those are important for your client? Like, how would Brian know that Kaylee would have been back there if he doesn't follow them on social media, if there's no connection, if they want to say that she was the target, let's just say. That's not where she was living. Let's see. Oh, let's see. Thank you there, Carrie Clark, for the new membership. Woo, woo. Well, then the best thing I can tell you, Lee, is to go over there and tell that channel and the mods to clean up their channel. And I've asked you before not to mention that, so I'm going to have to put you in timeout there, Lee. This is now the second time, so boom, people don't listen.
Kaylee graduating early, getting ready for a job, all these other things. Amazing stuff. All right. Now, this is Idaho. Death penalty is the law in Idaho. Prosecutors can seek it. A jury can make a decision on it. Do they support the death penalty in this case?
Absolutely, they do. He told me that's why they moved to Idaho, because it has the maximum punishment like that, Vinny. And he says the person responsible for these murders should receive the highest level of punishment. And he says there is enough evidence in this case that it's over for this guy. Let's watch. The death penalty, you support it, right?
We definitely do. Yep, that's part of the reason we moved to Idaho.
See, right there, perfect. Boom, nailed it. Ask the question, we hear the question, he gives the answer. Money bags. Now, this shows me that that could have happened on the last question. So I then question, really, what was the question? A lot of questioning going on. Again, welcome to the transparency.
You know, we want a community that protects the most vulnerable, and that's something that if a father can't protect them, then you hope that the society is willing to step up and do the right thing. So that's what we're looking for. The ultimate form of justice is that.
Do you think that it's weird that they have not, prosecution has not actually questioned the Gonzalez family, or if you want to say interviewed, whatever word you want to use? They know that this is, the death penalty has only so many days until you can go ahead and go that route. Usually you talk to the families about that, you know? What do you guys think about that? You know, that's something that hasn't come up as to, what do you mean they haven't talked to them? There's death penalty. So what do you think? What is up, drunk turkey? Gobble, 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 gobble. So think about that. Like, how have they not talked to them with the death penalty? You know, usually that's going to be something that's talked about. Let's take a look here. Twitter. Me. See what we got brewing. Court TV stating, let's see. Is this a pro Kohlberger channel or an anti-Kohlberger? That's just funny. That's when someone says that. there should be no sides with the law. There is the law of the land, and how you get there is called the Constitution. It's called the law, baby. It's called procedures. It's called fairness. I believe in innocent until proven guilty. Boom, give me blood in that car. Give it to me that it's the victim's blood. That is going to be hard to overcome. Okay, that's what I'm expecting to see. I'm expecting to see that a guy that ran into a house, quickly killed 4 people, was so sloppy, left a sheath. Oh my God, and now he's got the knife in his hand. When he ran out of there, no one's found the knife, so probably went with him. What, you think he just stopped and grabbed the garbage bag out of the kitchen before he went out the door? Did he strip down? Was he naked when he drove out of there? I'm expecting that there would be blood in that trunk if he, had a bag and put it in the trunk. I'm expecting there to be physical evidence in that vehicle. So. But give me and Scott Roeder and I were talking, and he's like, hey, the way that they're talking, the way that you would think, and everybody's talking like it's mainstream media and what's out there, is that the prosecution, the investigation, the police, that they have this, that they have this. And I question that. That's all. Is the court on yet? Don't know. Mod Squad, don't know. Let's see what we got here. We're not getting the play-by-plays. Up there, play-by-plays. The PCA's everything except the sheath is what you would call circumstantial evidence. So just give me that car. And according to Scott, you're going to be able to see that, how hard it is it's way harder, he said, to clean up blood than it is to plant blood. And I thought that was very, very interesting. So.
So Steve said he wouldn't be surprised if this defendant tries to seek a plea for a lesser sentence, Vinny, but he believes that the person responsible will actually receive the max. I mean, all the evidence is there, and they want him to be sentenced to death.
Yeah, if you're looking at mass murder, you're looking at cruel murder, face-to-face.
How you behave.
Response to that.
If you're not a personable person and you give off weird vibes, yeah, you probably don't want nobody to actually see the truth, see who you are, and read you for how you behave. You can't hide the truth, man. I'm so tired of the secretive and all that stuff. I want this stuff to be out in the open. There's more than enough evidence for people to make a decision, and how can the truth contaminate anything?
And of course, we know Koberger, he's going to trial in October. From the defense team asking this judge to limit media coverage and cameras inside the courtroom. They're saying that there's numerous social media posts that have people overanalyzing this man's body language, according to the court filings. And they say that audio-visual coverage has just become an obsession almost of creating unfounded opinions in the media, and it's prejudicial and unfair to his right to a fair trial. And this was Steve Gonsalves's response to that.
If you're not a personable person and you give off weird vibes, yeah, you probably don't want nobody to actually see the truth, see who you are, and read you for how you behave. You can't hide the truth, man. I'm so tired of the secretive and all that stuff. I want this stuff to be out in the open. There's more than enough evidence for people to make a decision, and how can the truth contaminate anything?
And of course, we know Koberger, he's going to trial in October. Will we have cameras? Will we not? It may be brought up tomorrow in the hearings that we expect to cover in the courtroom. So far, we have cameras in there tomorrow, Vinny, about this gag order, and likely they'll bring up these other issues as well.
He just made the best argument, and I think, we should be making a court TV. Your Honor, how can the truth contaminate anything?
The truth. I think that the trial should be shown. Okay. 100. You play it at it as is. When you take your little clips and you just make, like, when you ask a question, but you don't ask the question in front of the person, it could be a clip from something else. So again, disseminating things. This is a non-dissemination order. Okay. That is what this is about. And that's why the judge doesn't want people to say gag order. This is a non-dissemination order. Very different. So.
How can the truth? You put a camera in the courtroom, you hear the evidence. You don't hear someone saying, well, someone said this inside the courtroom, which may or may not be true. You get to see it and hear it. So how on earth does the truth contaminate anything? I love that. That is amazing. All right. Chanley's staying with us, folks. There's much, much more to this interview. Chanley drove around Kaylee's neighborhood and true insight into today. That's coming up. Plus, coming up next hour.
Another verdict day at Court TV in Manchester, New Hampshire. Adam Montgomery.
Thank you. Like every day you wake up, you think like, well, I need to do something to help find this person. There's like a clue out there that needs to be found, and that's kind of how we were going at it. I remember feeling like this is exhausting. And then when we finally had a suspect, and the relief that you feel knowing that, okay, some answers will actually come and be answered. And that to me is one of the things that keeps you going and makes you, wake up every morning and know that even though you're hurting, there's gonna be some meaning. Families realize that when a case like this big goes, a lot of times they want to label it after the person who did the atrocity. And, we are doing everything, all families, we've all agreed on this, to bring up stories and the memories and the narratives of our children. So then people remember our children, and they don't just remember the person who acted out and did these things. That's the last thing we want them to just remember the killer, and then never remember the victims. My daughter used to work with you guys. Okay. Kaylee Gonzalez. We're gonna go have a dinner. We're gonna hang out at the swimming pool. Our family's coming over, do a little barbecue. Later. Thank you. Have a great day. We felt like we picked a really safe state, a safe community. We left the city in California where we'd be awoken in different times of the night with sirens and shootings and things. So, and then when this happened, I was like, who in Idaho would do this? Who would be capable of doing that in our community? And I remember talking to one of the officers. We've always tried to put some emphasis on saying we appreciate all.
All right, let's take a look and see. Yes, that was where Kaylee worked. Let's take a look.
impartial trial. Okay, please be seated. Thank you. Here.
I'm asking.
Okay, so let's get on the record, please. We are now on the record. This is State versus Brian Koberger, CR 29222805. We're here for a hearing on the Gonzalez family's motion to appeal, amend, and/or clarify amended dissemination order that was filed back on February 3rd, was delayed because the media sought some relief from the Idaho Supreme Court. There was a delay to find out what the Supreme Court was going to determine. They did. And this morning we have the state represented by Mr. Thompson and Mr. Rudley. Mr. Koberger is in the courtroom, represented by Ms. Taylor and Mr. Logston. And I believe Mr. Gray is, there he is.
Let me sit back here, Your Honor.
And I believe some of the family is participating, observing on Zoom. So before we get into the arguments, I want to address the Gonzalez family and all the families, really. Didn't really have an opportunity to do this at the arraignment. My heart does go out to the families. And the loss to your children is devastating and horrific. I mean, there's no dispute about that. I also want to acknowledge and apologize because at the arraignment, I did stumble over a couple of the names, Kaylee's name and Zamon's name. And I want to explain that. I was up all night, really ill, probably food poisoning, and I was not at full potential. Probably also some emotion and nerves as I read those names. And I'm sorry. So that's my apology for that. I know some people were concerned about that and wanted to address it. I also wanted to explain a procedure at the arraignment that apparently drawn from the media that some people were confused when Mr. Koberger declined to enter a plea. And I just wanted to clear that up because I didn't really see any explanation about that in the media. That is Mr. Koberger's right. And under Rule 11A1 of the Idaho Criminal Rules, and this is a quote, if a defendant refuses to plead, the court must direct the entry of a plea of not guilty. That is not unusual. But reading the media, it seemed like somewhat mysterious. So I wanted to explain that, particularly to the media. It's a small issue, but it's somewhat, well, I think that I have an obligation, just as the media has an obligation, to help to educate the public about the processes that we are responsible to follow in the courtroom, and that's important for journalists. That's also important for the citizens. So, if you're curious about that, you can always find the criminal rules on the Idaho Supreme Court website, and it's very, very easy to read them and maybe get a better understanding. All right, so that's my speech for today. Mr. Gray, come on up. And
If you allow me just a minute or two to get
Yeah.
sorted out here.
take your
Appreciate
time.
it.
Take your time. Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Can I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Gray.
First, Your Honor, we'd like to thank you for apologizing to the victim's family. I think it was an emotional day for them, and they appreciate your apology. I know that they took that part up. Thank you. I would first want to start with the procedural history of this non-dissemination order, if I could. On January 3rd, 2023, the Judge Marshall submitted a non-dissemination order. And in that order, it applied to parties in the action, which would have been the prosecution, the defense, and any agents, investigators involved in it. After that non-dissemination order was issued, I reached out to the prosecutor's office to see if I could get Judge Marshall's email. For some reason, I don't know if they took it down, but I couldn't find it online. And they informed me that they were not privy to give me that information. Then on January 13th, there was a Zoom call that was requested by Judge Marshall. That Zoom call was requested at 1 o'clock on the 13th. I received an email at 12:58 from Judge Marshall's clerk requesting a Zoom call to speak to all interested parties. The Zoom call occurred at 4 o'clock p.m. During that meeting, the judge reminded us, all the parties involved, it was the prosecution, it was the defense, it was myself, it was the attorneys for the victims' families, the attorneys for the witnesses, I believe were there as well, a number of attorneys, and reminded us that her non-dissemination order mirrored that of Idaho Rules of Professional Conduct 3.6. As part of that hearing, and I think it's details here, she talks about the rule applies to all lawyers participating in the Zoom meeting, the state and the defense, and all attorneys for the witnesses. When she had that Zoom meeting, and I've requested the transcript from that Zoom meeting and haven't been able to receive it yet from Judge Marshall's court, so we could have a full transcript of what went on that day. But as part of that meeting, I had questioned Judge Marshall regarding the victim's family and whether or not they were allowed to speak to the media based on the fact that she had said all interested parties as well in the initial non-dissemination order. I didn't receive any clarification. I was just instructed to go back to Idaho Rules of Professional Conduct 3.6, as well as I was told, and this is in quotes from her Zoom release, take their duties in utmost regard in conducting themselves and advising their clients. I took that as I should tell my clients to be quiet. She reiterated that again in the Zoom call by saying that I had ethical duties ascribed above in the Idaho Rules of Professional Conduct for commentary of Rule 3.6. And she reminded me later that lawyers have a responsibility in giving advice to their clients. I disagreed with Judge Marshall on almost every point during that meeting. As well as if I had known that we were going to be discussing the Idaho Rules of Professional Conduct in that issue, I would have prepared, but only having a 3-hour notice did allow me, and not knowing what the subject of the meeting was going to be, didn't allow me to address those issues at that time. Now, after the non-dissemination order in January 3rd, and then the January 13th, 2023 meeting, the judge amended the non-dissemination order on January 18th. And she basically repeated the same order, except for she added the attorneys for any interested party in this case, including attorneys representing witnesses, victims, or victims' families, as well as parties to the above entitled action. So you can see the difference is that the first one dealt with parties to the case. The second one went way over the top, addressing all attorneys that might be associated with the case or any attorneys that might have an interested party in this case. So that's where we are today. I filed the motion based on that additional language. Now, I'd like to get into some of the issues here. It's very clear that I am not a party to the case and the victims' families are not a party to the case. That's very clear through all of the case law, as well as.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
There's no dispute about that.
Okay, then
Your clients are not parties. The only parties of this case are the state and Mr. Colbert. That's
Okay,
and that's clear in the case law with regard to any victims or victims' families. There are constitutional protections and statutory protections for victims and their families.
I would agree.
That's well established.
So let's get into the actual non-dissemination order itself, how it addresses to me personally as the attorney for the victim's family. This non-dissemination order, of all of the cases and all of the motions that were filed, and referencing every case that was listed in this case, none of them apply to a victim's attorney, an attorney representing the victims. The Idaho v. Tapp case was an attorney speaking about a judge who he was in front of. The Good case was a defense attorney that spoke to the media. The Mezebov case was a defense attorney and a prosecutor. The Morrissey case was a defense attorney and a press conference. Varner versus Delahunty was an attorney and a judge, all parties to the case. Cutler was a defense attorney, U.S. v. Cutler. Zhao versus Slop was a defense attorney. Irwin versus Dowd were the prosecutor's actions and speaking to the media. Shepard v. Marshall, Maxwell, is a trial publicity regarding the prosecutor's actions prior to trial. None of those things apply to the victim's family or the victim's attorney in any way. Now, I do agree that the court has the power to control those that are parties to the case and that are involved in the case in some way. But we have to define that. What means involvement in the case? Part of that is that the judge referred to the Idaho Rules of Professional Conduct 3.6, trial publicity. She references that multiple times as the basis for her non-dissemination order in this case and how it might apply to me. If you'll read the first paragraph, a lawyer who participates or has participated in the investigation or litigation of a matter shall not make extrajudicial statements. That is not me. It never has been me. It can't be me because I'm not involved in the litigation. She also says.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because I think the case law is quite clear that attorneys who are representing witnesses can be restricted to some degree, partly because they have access to particular information that should not be shared with the public. And if I'm recalling correctly, the state has suggested or has determined that your clients are witnesses potentially. So that's kind of the
And I can
issue
address it,
right
Your
there.
Honor.
Go ahead.
As part of that is that, let's just make it clear, the victim's family has never been involved in this investigation, ever, from the get-go. After Mr. Koberger was indicted, we received no information about anything regarding the prosecution, nothing. They wouldn't even tell us that a grand jury was being impaneled for Mr. Koberger. They told us that there was a grand jury that was being impaneled, and common sense, we figured it out, because he's the only guy in the county. But they wouldn't even relay that information. They haven't given us any information regarding the investigation of the case. But the most critical part of it is that the prosecution has never, ever interviewed the Gonzalez family. So how in the world would we ever be able to be witnesses in this case? And for what purpose would we be? If you're asking about for sentencing purposes, that's post-conviction. That's after he's been convicted on the case. Prior to trial, we're not any witnesses. And that falls into completely different statutes. That falls into the restitution statute. It falls into the victim statute. I just handled that matter in front of the Lori Vallow case, where the judge, I had a motion, the defense did not want the victim's family to appear. And so the judge had to make a determination whether they were immediate family, because it was the grandparents. Completely different statutes because that was post-conviction. And those witnesses were allowed in the courtroom and were involved in the sentencing aspect of it. Okay? So we are in a very, very different factual situation here. I'm not asking as a witness to the case, they've never ever told us in any way how we would be witnesses in this case, other than the conjecture that we may have potentially. That's not good enough to stop the free speech of the victim's family as well as myself. The other thing is that if the victims can say whatever they want during the free speech and that's exempt, why would I not be allowed to say the same thing that they said?
My understanding is that your clients are not restricted in any way, never have been.
Well, and I'll give you an example.
Is that true?
That's right. Well, I agree now, because that's not the tone of the Zoom meeting.
Well, we're not talking about the
Okay.
tone. I'm talking about the language of the order.
Yes, the language of the order now, because any interested parties, I ask for clarification, now understand that they can say whatever they want. And that's correct. But here's the problem. If they said, we think the judge is crazy, would I advise them against that? Absolutely.
Thank you.
But if I went and said, the family has said that they think the judge is crazy, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm repeating exactly what they said. Now, what comes into play is, for our purposes today, is what if I offer up my own opinion? Right? Well, then I'm already governed by the Idaho rules of professional conduct. And if
I'm glad you're acknowledging that.
no, well, every attorney is, Your Honor. I mean, it's not every attorney is. So the idea that I'm not, but every rule doesn't apply all the time. If I'm talking poorly about a judge, another rule might pop in. 8.3, I think is what it is, or 8.1. If I'm saying other things that might affect things another way, then maybe the trial publicity. But the trial publicity, I don't even think applies to me in this anyway. Because if you look at it, it says it applies to a lawyer who is participating or has participated in the investigation or litigation of a matter shall not make extrajudicial statements. And it goes on, highlighted by Judge Marshall, then in paragraph 3. The rule sets forth a basic general prohibition about lawyers making statements that the lawyer knows or should know will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing the adjudicated proceeding. And at the bottom of the paragraph, it says this: rule only applies to lawyers who are or who have been involved in the investigation or litigation of cases and their associates. If I'm not a party to the case, I can't be involved in the investigation or the litigation of this case in any way. So I would argue that the trial publicity rule of professional conduct does not apply to me as well.
Help me understand what you think you can't say that you've already been saying.
I have no idea. I have no idea where it came from.
You've been on the media and you've had interviews. So I'm kind of wondering how do you feel that you've been restrained in any way with this order?
I think you're not seeing what the point is. What the point is that
I understand
the court has issued a non-dissemination order that restricts First Amendment rights, that is overly broad in almost every aspect of it. Anybody that's interested and they have an attorney, when an attorney who's walking down the street could offer up his opinion in any way, it also takes away from the idea, doesn't the court want victims' families to have representation, to guide them through the legal process? Wouldn't the court encourage that? That they could explain things, to maybe advise them on what to say, what not to say? I mean, if you're taking my voice away, you're taking the voice away of everything. The other part of it is this, is that I'm absolutely blown away that the prosecution doesn't agree with me in this case. The reason being is that they are representing the victims, which in turn are the victims' families. And I have not seen a poorer line of communication in my 22 years of practicing than the prosecution's office and the Gonzalez family. And I think it stems from, initially, we were critical of the investigation. They wanted to find the person who did this. That's normal emotions. And then from that point on, it has been, we are the enemy. And that's how we feel in this. And so me guiding them and then trying to limit my voice and helping them out in some way, and then throwing out a random idea that they may be potential witnesses when they've never ever interviewed them in any way, it's just an attempt to shut the attorney up and shut the family up, is what it is. Because if I had come to you today and said, we've given 7 interviews, Your Honor, we may be witnesses in this case, we've done all of these things, it may be a different story. We haven't done anything. They haven't interviewed the entire family. So,
well, I don't know what's in all the investigation, obviously, and a lot of us don't know and probably won't know until the trial.
And the other thing,
Well, let me just say this. I think one of the potential issues is this is potentially a death penalty case. Hasn't been noticed, but that is a potential. And the families of the victims certainly would be witnesses in that process of sentencing. Now, that is not post-conviction technically, is it?
If your goal is fair and impartial jury, right? That's the reason for the non-dissemination order. Well, after the conviction, that goes away.
Well, it's also confidence in the process. So I have that job. I have a job of protecting and preserving the First Amendment and also the Sixth Amendment. And there is some balancing there. That is why lawyers who have access to information that is not accessible by the public have particular restrictions. That's what this whole case is about. In this hearing is about.
And as an officer of the court, I can tell you we have 0 access.
Okay, so you're saying that the prosecutor's office has not shared information with your client.
Regarding the facts of this case, no, they haven't.
Right.
How things occurred.
And everybody's going to have a chance to weigh in on this, and I just, you're helping me understand what the issues are. So thank you.
So that's really the issue here. I mean, and this is an important ruling, because what you're doing is this has never happened before. Ever has it happened before that a Judge Marshall, has tried to silence the attorneys for victims. Never has it happened that I'm aware of.
Would you feel more comfortable if there was a more concrete description of what people could say and what they can't say?
I don't think you have the authority to, Your Honor.
Well, I think I do have the authority.
Well, my argument is that, part of the argument is that,
In fact, I know I have the authority to do that.
well, and the authority would be through your the attempt to have a fair and impartial jury, that you can control people that are involved in the case, correct?
That's part of it.
And we're not involved in the case.
Okay,
So that is,
that's hard to accept, but
we're not witnesses in the case, we're not involved in the investigation, we're not involved in the litigation. I can't file any motions, I can't subpoena anybody, I can't cross-examine witnesses, I can't do anything. So this idea that there's this loose idea that there may be, weighing that versus our freedom to speak, First Amendment, is,
we're talking about your
that's right,
speech,
that's right.
not your client's speech.
But that is my
That's
speech, that is part of it though.
Well, in your memorandum, you are suggesting that you also have an independent position, that you are representing yourself.
I do.
It's distinctive from your responsibility to your clients.
That's why the motion is for amending or clarification, because there's the clients that have the free to speak. There's me repeating what they have to say. If they said the judge, we thought the judge was crazy, and I said the judge was crazy, I can't be, it doesn't violate the non-dissemination order because I'm allowed to say that. And then there's my independent voice, where I said, the judge is crazy? Yeah, I think the judge is crazy. That goes into another layer, right? Where it would be, I would be, Idaho rules of professional conduct would fall into play, and what I would be doing or what I couldn't do. Not the non-dissemination order, because we're not parties to the case. I'd be governed by the Idaho rules of professional conduct if I made those statements, extradite those statements. And I may or may not fall under the probability. I would argue that I don't, because I'm not a party to it. I'm not litigated it, I don't have any information on it, none of those things. So really, that's where the authority for me, for my voice, would come from the Idaho rules of professional conduct, if I did that. And if I made a statement that I thought didn't apply for trial publicity purposes, that would be an argument for another day. But it wouldn't be for you, for a contempt of court for me, because I'm not a party to the case and I'm not involved in the case in any way. I'm just repeating what my clients say, or I'm just saying my own individual opinion, which doesn't, by the way, makes it absolutely unduly prejudicial. Because what if a guy is on an Idaho bar member, is walking down the street, looks up, sees a television program where the Gonzalez family says, well, we thought the judge was crazy, right? And then all of a sudden, the media is outside, they interview him, they say, hey, you're an attorney here. What about the judge being crazy? Well, I've been in front of him 3 or 4 times, and I would agree with him. You're going to sanction him and contempt of court? You can't. Same as me, because I'm not a party to it. He's not a party to it. He might be governed by the Idaho rules of professional conduct by commenting on you, Your Honor, but it wouldn't be because of the judge's non-dissemination order. So how can it not apply to him, but it can apply to me? It can't.
Well, the case law suggests that because you represent potential witnesses, that you have access to information that may not or should not be shared with the public. That's what the case law says.
And I would argue this, what potential witnesses are we, number one, and what access to information do we have? I think the defense has argued that we have some sort of access because the clients can tell me whatever they want to tell me, right? Well, that's free speech. They can say whatever they want to me, and I can go off and say whatever I want that they said. Because it's free speech. It's the First Amendment. So you can't, this non-dissemination order is so broad, none of the case law applies to people that are outside of the defense or the prosecution. That's the point of it. That's the whole point of a non-dissemination order, because they have access to it. They have access to the information. Victims, attorneys, families do not. And the idea that we may or may not be a potential witness is enough for Your Honor. I just can't see that, especially when there's no history of them ever being a witness. And to tell you the truth, the day after they filed that notice, or the day before they filed the notice that we may be potential witnesses, we had just gotten out of a meeting with the prosecutor's office, discussing whatever we could discuss, like our concerns, because that's all we do is go in and talk about our concerns, and they tell us, we can't say anything, we can't say anything, we can't say anything. We'll get to it. When we walked up, nowhere in that meeting were we described as being witnesses in this case. But all of a sudden, the next day, they thought we might be, even though they'd never interviewed us. So they're throwing stuff in the air that is not justified, and the idea that he thinks maybe might is not enough to regulate my free speech in this as the attorney for the victim's family, because that's what we are. We're not attorney for witnesses, we're attorney for the victim's family. And if the court has any other questions, I'd be more than happy.
I understand your position.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. So let me go to the state. I don't know if that's Mr. Thompson or Mr. Rutland.
It'll be me. Can I have one moment, Your Honor?
Certainly. Thank you.
Your Honor, if I may,
Yes, you may.
Mr. Rudley is actually going to be arguing on the motions themselves, but as attorneys, we have a duty of candor to the court. Mr. Gray has made representations to the court that at best are misleading and in many ways simply untrue. And I need to correct them for the record. Because the media is here. I do not want the public to come away with the impression that improprieties have occurred. First, Mr. Gray, on behalf of his clients, has propounded a number of questions to our office and to the investigators. We have answered the ones that we can. We have not shared ones that we are concerned that Mr. Gray or his clients would make public and compromise the integrity of the investigation. For him to say that we've provided more information is simply not true. Secondly, he claims that law enforcement has not interviewed his clients, and that somehow that is the investigator's fault. In fact, from the very beginning, the investigators have attempted to interview his clients, and Mr. Gray has not permitted it. So just for the record, I want to make sure that's clear. Thank you, Your Honor.
If I could speak to that, Your Honor.
You'll be able to
Thank
come
you.
back in after you hear the other arguments.
Thank you.
Mr. Rutland, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. In State v. Spencer, the Idaho Supreme Court noted that it is also the duty of the prosecutor to ensure the right to a fair and impartial trial. Under the dictates of Shepard v. Maxwell, the court has a duty to take affirmative steps to address the impacts that intense pretrial publicity can have on a case. As noted in Shepard, Nebraska Press Association versus Stewart, and their progeny, an order like the one in this case is an appropriate measure for addressing that duty of the court. As Mr. Boston's experts have noted, attorneys often have information about a case that may not be appropriate for dissemination in the press. Additionally, attorneys carry a greater weight when appearing on television. For instance, what might be easier for the parties to address is a juror that says, I've seen coverage on the case, but I don't always trust what I've seen on TV, and I can set that aside. What's more difficult is a juror that says, I've seen attorneys for the prosecution, attorneys for the defense, or attorneys for the victims on television talking about a critical aspect of the case. In the matter of Gentile versus State Bar of Nevada, that case involved an attorney who held one press conference in 1991 after the indictment of his client. In this case, Mr. Graves repeatedly issued statements and been on television. At minimum, it's insincere to argue that he's feeling bound by the order when it's clearly not abided by. In Gentile, the court noted that the speech of attorneys is subject to less substantial, or can be regulated by less substantial means. In this case, as we've shown by the affidavit we filed, the Gonzalez families are potential witnesses in a trial, or more specifically at sentencing. The order in this case is not vague, overbroad, unduly restrictive, or not narrowly drawn. It precludes all extrajudicial statements of the attorneys in this case, attorneys for the witnesses, victims, law enforcement, and investigators. The order addresses, if the court were to apply strict scrutiny, the order addresses a substantial likelihood that pretrial publicity poses to the integrity of the judicial system, and is tailored to ensure that the rights to a fair trial are upheld. As we briefed in the case of Levine, the alternatives such as sequestration of the jury or changing a venue aren't going to mitigate the impacts of statements, extrajudicial statements in this case, and are unlikely to do so. Thus, the state contends that the order is an appropriate measure of the court to uphold its duty under Shepherd, Nebraska Press Association, and the like, to preserve the right to a fair and impartial trial. At a minimum, Mr. Gray's statements that he's not bound by trial publicity rules or 3.6 in this case illustrate why the order of the court is necessary in this matter. And so we would ask that the court uphold the amended non-dissemination order, or at most, tailor it to those statements specifically precluded in Rule of Professional Conduct 3.8. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Redley. Yeah, do you think that would be helpful to just, and I asked Mr. Gray this same question, would it be helpful to say, okay, you can say these things, but you can't say these things, and be more specific about that?
Your Honor, our initial position is that the total prohibition of extrajudicial statements is the safest and most responsive way in this case to address and preserve the right to a fair and impartial trial.
All right. Can you go back? You mentioned this about the standard particularly applying to the lawyers who are somehow connected with the case.
Yes, Your Honor. In Nebraska Press Association v. Stewart, it's noted that I believe Justice Brennan states that there's no doubt that the court has authority, though it's in a footnote, it's no doubt that the court has authority to regulate the speech of attorneys, witnesses, and other participants in the court process. At this point, the evidence that's been provided is that the family would be potential witnesses in the case, as Mr. Thompson mentioned. We haven't necessarily been able to make a full assessment of that, but undoubtedly they'd be witnesses in any sentencing.
And what about the standard? Strict scrutiny or lower standard?
Your Honor, we would argue that the court should apply the standard in Gentile versus State Bar of Nevada, where the Supreme Court stated that, I don't want to mess this up, so I'm going to click here.
That's fine.
That the speech of lawyers may be regulated under a less demanding standard. So we would argue that so long as the court finds that it has a duty under Shepherd to preserve the right to a fair and impartial trial, that the order addresses the substantial likelihood that that negative pretrial publicity would have on that right, then the court would have authority to impose the amended non-dissemination order.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Thank you.
Grade said, and obviously you wrote a lot in the briefing. So I guess I'll just touch on a couple of things. In terms of the argument that the victims' families are not involved in the litigation of this case and therefore don't fall in 3.6, would be our position that if you have statutory and constitutional rights involved in this case, you're involved in the litigation. Regardless of whether or not the prosecution is willing to work closely with you or whatever issue you have there, the reality is if you have literal rights that permit you certain things that are involved in this case, you're involved in litigation. And therefore you fall within 3.6 just like everyone else. Second, the standard from Gentile is the substantial likelihood of material prejudice. I don't want to get too much into that, Judge. I think that's kind of this after-news argument. I think the main thing before the court, as far as Mr. Gray and the family, is just, do they fall within this, and then the court to decide what is appropriate. But I would note that given the vast amount of media coverage in this case, and the fact that it seems like no matter what anybody says or does, in one way, shape, or form, it will be twisted into an attack on my client. We also agree that at this point, the safest thing to do is for everyone to just not be talking to the media and allow statements to be made here, where we all get a chance to speak, and the media gets all that information. If they still choose to do what it is they've been doing, then that's on them. But we don't have somebody who's trying to whip the media into a frenzy and send this case to a firing squad or however it is. So that's our main concern. The only other thing that I wanted to address, and the court addressed this a little bit, the reason we stand silent with grand jury indictments is because there's an old arcane rule that says that if you have a grand jury indictment and you enter a plea, you are accepting the validity of the indictment. I've seen prosecutors try to use that in a long time, but we can avoid any possible claims that somehow we can't challenge anything with the indictment by simply standing silent and having the court enter the plea. So just so that everybody's clear, that's why we do that. Does the court have any questions for me?
I don't think so, but thank you for that additional education.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Gray, it's your motion, so you can respond to what other counsel expressed.
I guess the first thing I would want to address is the prosecution's idea that I haven't allowed our clients to speak with the investigators. You'll realize that the date of the incident, I wasn't retained on this case until close to December 5th, which will be more than 3 weeks after the incident occurred. And they still have made no contact as far as investigating and interviewing the victims' families. So somehow that I precluded that in some way is just not true, Your Honor. And as far as scheduling those things, I'll just leave it at that. The second part is everyone is quoting the Gentile case. The Gentile case is exactly like all of the other cases. It says over and over, it has to be a lawyer participating in the judicial proceedings. It has to be a lawyer who represents a defendant involved with the criminal justice system, a lawyer actively participating in trial, a lawyer who's participating before the courts can only be limited if he's participating in front of the courts. None of it applies to me.
It seems like you're in the court right now.
Because you're the one that brought me in here because of the non-dissemination.
You brought yourself.
Yeah, well,
You're the one who filed the motion.
I did file a motion because the non-dissemination order is unconstitutional.
I'm just trying to clarify what you just said.
Well, this will probably be the only time I'm allowed because I won't have the authority to file any other motions on anything else in this case.
Why would you say that?
Well, because I'm not a party to the case.
You can still, I mean, the media is not a party of the case either.
Once again,
well, the Supreme Court has said they have standing to come into the court and address issues. So
yeah, but that's completely separate. They're not.
Well, I know it's separate.
Okay, so
I also respect your position in representing the family's victim's family, And I respect that. And there are some constitutional issues, rights that they have. So I'm not just dismissing that.
And the mere fact that you have a right, I'm absolutely positive that the Idaho legislature and the Constitution, when they gave victims rights, didn't think that was implementing those victims into the trial in some way. Absolutely positive that wasn't the intention of it.
Totally agree with that.
So this idea that if you have rights, then you're involved is just beyond. That being said, Your Honor, nothing precluded the prosecution from contacting my clients well before I was representing them. I had almost 3 weeks to contact them. I think, don't mark me on this, I think I was retained on December 5th. I think that was the day. I don't have my file in front of me, but it will hold me to it. But I think that was the day. So they had plenty of time to contact my clients and interview them if they were going to be potential witnesses in this case. And since then, every time we have had a meeting, we have initiated that conversation. It hasn't been the prosecution initiating that conversation.
So are you saying since you have been representing your clients that the prosecutor or investigators have not asked for interviews?
I would say this, in the meetings that I have had with the prosecution's office, I have asked as part of that whether interviewing my clients might be an issue. Would they like to do that in some way? I've offered that up in some way, and they've never taken us up on it. And maybe a random email here and there that says something and no follow-up whatsoever about it. So this idea that they are going to be witnesses in this case is just an attempt by the prosecution to shut them up as well as to shut me up. And by the way, people completely forget about this. All of the information that has been disseminated to the public from the get-go was the mayor, Art Bentley. Chief Fry had interviews. Bill Thompson had interviews. The coroner had interviews. All of those people had interviews. We didn't. We didn't until we started getting information and started trying to figure out what was going on after they had given interview after interview after interview. That was the purpose of the judge issuing the non-dissemination order, is to quiet them up, not quiet the victims up. They had no control over that investigation from the get-go.
Well, that order was a stipulation between
That's
the state and Mr. Koberger.
That's the other thing, though, is that the court, after that Zoom meeting, Judge Marshall incorrectly said that was stipulated by all parties. I never stipulated to that. I emailed the
You're
judge.
not a party.
Exactly right. I'm not involved in the
The
case.
stipulation was between the parties. Since
So,
you've correctly stated who the parties are.
so we would
I
ask,
agree, but you were suggesting that it was entered to shut down the prosecutor's office.
why would they
That's what
claim?
you just said.
I do think that part of the, that was part of the process, is that they understood that their investigation was getting out of hand. Too many people were talking in their investigation, and that's why they stipulated to it. Yes, I do.
Okay, when you say they, you mean the prosecutor's
Yes.
office.
Yes.
All right.
Do you want me to give you a final, or do you?
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah. You go.
We're not a party to the case. You're very aware of that. I have the right to repeat what my clients say to the media. I also have an independent right governed by the Idaho Rules of Professional Conduct regarding those individual rights versus my own opinions. But those opinions, I don't firmly believe, would fall under the publicity rule on the Idaho Rules of Professional Conduct, because I'm not litigating it or part of the litigation. And the reason those things are in place are because people that have real privy information regarding the prosecution and the defense, which I don't, which my clients don't in any way, it shouldn't apply, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Green. All right. Well, I'm not going to issue a decision today. I'm going to issue a written decision. There is a lot of briefing, and I heard some very interesting argument today. else we need to address before I adjourn? Mr. Thompson?
I don't think so, Your Honor.
Ms. Taylor? Mr. Lonsky? Anything else?
Yeah, we thought you'd probably want to issue an order and wait, but I guess we're just wondering if in the meantime, the order as it is remains in place.
Yes.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay. Well, someone's telling the truth, someone's not telling the truth. I don't know if you want to talk about technicalities, but basically, they just want some language cleared up. So I could potentially see here the gag order stays in place, and that there's language in it that says that Mr. Gray and the Gonsalves family can say whatever they want, but be prepared that if it's going to go against the professional rules of conduct, that Mr. Gray has to adhere due to his oath. That's where he's going to see some, some issues. That's what I would take from this. I think that the judge is great. I think he's like, what are we doing here? Because he's over here he's like, I don't think that this has to do, like, you're talking to the media. So, what do you guys think? I think that you have the prosecutor saying that that is not true. That is not true. So you have attempted to interview the family, and then you got Gray saying that's never happened. So the gag order prevents law enforcement and the DA from talking. Yes. You guys, it's not even, I think that really is important to say, like, the non-dissemination order. Like, no, you can't just take bits and parts, like, and do like someone can't just go interview somebody and they get to give their bits and parts of it. That's what non-dissemination means. Like what you see every day on News Nation, these little clips and shit, that's disseminating somebody's interview. Okay, that's what the non-dissemination order is all about. That's why doing a press conference and you get to ask the question to who's ever leading the press conference, and then an answer is given right like that. Boom, you play there was a press conference. But I thought it was interesting him saying there at the end that it was the mayor that came out and said something. Then it was the coroner. Then it was Chief Fry. 100, Heather. No one's getting gagged here. I think maybe he's been personally threatened in some capacity. Maybe there's stuff that's happened off the beaten path. I don't know, but they're definitely speaking to whoever they want. They're doing interviews with mainstream media. They're doing interviews with non-mainstream media. And the judge kind of said that in the beginning. He's like, I didn't realize you were gagged. I see you on the I see you I see you guys all talking. Yes, I do like how Gray pointed out the gag order was for the prosecution, coroner, and local law enforcement talking. Yeah, people's wives talking that are married to the police officers, people that took the 911 call, dispatchers, things like that. Maybe even a janitor. Let's go ahead and do this, though. All right, yes. Next up will be the media. So we'll see if that one's ready. I don't know if it is. I think what I took way more away from everything was just that the family wasn't interviewed. The family was never interviewed. Like, so, I mean, wouldn't she be asking the family, like, did your daughter tell you anything? Was she scared of anyone? I'm just like, wow. Wouldn't you want to try to get as much information from the family as you could? We're back from recess, yeah. So they're not going to release that for a minute. Someone stood in the courtroom today and lied. Well, I thought his answer there when the judge asked him something specific, and he's like, "Well, here I'll say it like this." So maybe a random email here or there to say what will you sign off on the mail. That was the FBI. How come the prosecution and the Gonsalves family are like? How are they totally like? I'm just like, hey, we need to at least come together as a united front. Like, we can't be doing this. This is. I think this is embarrassing. I don't know. And I would definitely think that why wouldn't the defense be calling any of the families as potential witnesses? I mean, you have one of the family members saying that they changed a lock on one of their kids' doors. Don't you think you'd want to know why a lock was changed? I mean, I would think the defense might be asking these people some questions. If they never interviewed the G family, then that tells me that K and M were never the target, or they had somebody in mind right away. Are the other families being kept in the dark? Are they being told? You know, I think Bill Thompson stood up and kind of spoke that to say that there's stuff that we can't give out, you know, no matter if it was the Gonsalves family or the other families. Yeah, victimology has a lot to do with it. A lock wasn't changed. Screws were tightened. Been clarified. Stopping in to say hello. What is up? I would want to know. I would have tons of questions if I was the defense that you're going to be raising. I mean, how are you going to defend Brian Kohlberger or somebody else has had to do this, right? There's 4 people dead. There's 4 murders. If he didn't do it, who did it? You're going to want to, you know, to show the jury reasonable doubt, whatever it is that you're mounting this defense, you know, whatever it may be. I think that if it's not him, who else? And you want to kind of show that. So I would think that if the parents have heard things, or if your daughter or son mentioned things to you. So. I want to know whose lives would be in danger. Yeah.
That problem is that I've really gotten into this. Some people are calling it a two-tier justice system, but I'm going to assert something more broadly.
I just don't think that they're gagged. I think the judge made that perfectly clear at the beginning, that you're on the news. They're talking. You're there with them. Brian's lawyers were the chillest ones today. Well, I just think that it wasn't their, we don't want, we don't want people, leaking stuff to the media and the media being able to put their spin on it. That's what the defense doesn't want. So what's their beef? I don't know. What you listening to, Lana? Oh, Trump being indicted, I guess, I just think everybody's using the word gagged has been the problem. That's my thing. But they are gagged in a sense of law enforcement, and the DA isn't telling them anything like they should. That's not true. They're not telling them anything about the investigation. They're not gagged. If Steve and Christy and whoever want to say whatever, they can. If the Chapins want to talk about what time they got there and show their phone records, and go ahead and start doing it. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but they're almost being gagged. It's an investigation. They don't give out information like that. But this started way early. Okay, this started way early with that. They didn't even have a press conference for any of us until the 16th. Okay. To the public, they're just horrible communicators. They're a small town and good old boys club, and that's just what it is. Yeah, Laura, we love you, Lana. Thanks for receiving us. We love you. Does the prosecutor represent the family of the victims? Yeah, how I would be if I was a prosecutor would be what Bill Thompson is doing. I mean, I would want a good relationship, and I would want the parents of all the victims to have a good relationship. I wouldn't want people to be at war with each other. Sitting them all down at the beginning, and I just think that they didn't do that. And like anything, it's like any relationship in life. How do you earn, the trust and the, So, all right. Well, I may do a live later to check out that second half. So, but until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your Friday. Be kind to one another. Make yourself known. Cool.